Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This week's show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Witch Watch Season 1, Episode 24. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, I went into the first episode knowing, it deals with specifically Denim, but I was kind of correlating this to the most recent episode where Morihito was it was his birthday and those jeans he was wearing. I thought it might be correlated to that, but it's more about going back to something. It doesn't come up that often, but it maybe it came up in that episode too. But I know early on they reference the fact is that he's into vintage stuff. But this is him being a nut about jeans, specifically about jeans that he washed once after getting them, because it's about basically the fold of it and just all the different names for certain wrinkles on different parts, like whiskers and honeycombs. It's a whole thing. Morihito, when he gets into something, he gets into it. I mean, we see that he has that type of personality about so many things that pop up in the show, but things that he's really passionate about. You would never think Morihito would be the clothes dude that he is, but he is. He knows these jeans, this particular pair of jeans. Because he kind of does the whole he's almost he's checking the weather. I don't know, because there's a festival coming up and they're talking about all the stuff they're going to do, and that inspired him to talk about the jeans. I don't know if it's he was going to make this a special outing to bring out these jeans because he realized maybe because of the weather and stuff, it's ooh, this is the perfect time to pull them out. But when he explains this stuff, it's just kind of it goes in one ear and out the other. Even to the point, I think it was Khan that goes over to Keigo being hey, you might not want to ask him any further follow-up questions, because the more you ask him, the more he'll kind of get stuck in this mode of he'll answer these questions and you get more and more lost. So it's a moot point. But Miharu goes actually, I've got more questions. And the others are oh, we'll get out of here. And he forces Keigo, Khan, and Nico to all sit down. He's oh, this is an opportunity for you. You're what opportunity? And I guess it's the opportunity to learn about jeans. But even Miharu is well, I don't really wear jeans, so this kind of feels kind of really boring. And Khan's you're the one that started this in the first place, so you don't have any right to complain. But what I love, though, is he went so hard in the paint and he talks with such passion that everyone started getting sucked up into it for different reasons, because he'll bring up something I think it was Miharu had asked him the question of well, what if you just buy jeans that are already have the not wear and tear, but they're kind of been worn down? Why don't you just buy them like that? He's well, yes, those are fine artificially, but the good thing that comes from these jeans being it adds personality to it, real personality. And he talks about it later on with the memories that are sketched into these jeans. For example, when he's talking to Keigo, he's I wore these when I fought you as Wolf. And it's yeah, those are there as a memory, and that means a lot. And that spoke to Keigo. And because he's also a niche nerd himself. So I think on some level he can appreciate it, but it's also kind of this beautiful sentimental thing of oh, this is our first time fighting. And that whole fight led to us becoming true friends. So it's there's a lot of sentimental memories associated with that. You even have Khan being oh, well, why don't you buy him secondhand? But then Morihito's yeah, you could do that. But then basically, from an existential we're talking about jeans here, but from an existential standpoint, there's something beautiful about him being but then you'd be living someone else's life. I was oh, that's, once again, from an existential standpoint, you're that's actually really deep and interesting. And I love that all three of them got sucked up into it. And it's yeah, we're learning more about jeans. We're loving this. I'll get a pair of jeans myself and wear it. And then Nico's just I'm still on the outs for this. And obviously the jeans aren't fully where Morihito wants them to be quality-wise. So for him, it's okay, so now I'm in the process where I can wash them more often and wear them all the time, but wash them I had to not wash them for a year, but now I'm in the process where I can wash them on a normal basis, but I got to wear them every day. The natural wear and tear, and just once again, not tearing, but just the natural aspect of it all. It's just wearing them and washing them will kind of give it the extra layers to things that he wants. And Nico wanting to help out is oh, why don't I do this? And she activates the doppelganger spell, which I was oh, has she used this spell before? But then they remind us, it's oh, it's from the episode when she made that doppelganger of Keigo for the death game he was making, that they kind of made a better version of by the end. But it's yeah, we'll have this thing wear the pants, jeans, and it will do squats So that way Morihito doesn't have to put all the time and effort into it. We just have this doppelganger do it. But even Morihito, from an existential standpoint, was kind of like, oh, isn't that kind of messed up? It's like, is that all he's going to do? What kind of life is that to lead? And then you have Nico staring, and like her eyes are just like pure dark, where she's like, oh, he has no personality, he doesn't feel pain, so it's not that big of a deal. But Khan's like, Jesus, is your ethics like kind of a little skewed at this moment? But for her, it's like, right, like, they can only do simple commands, so it, something complicated isn't being done. So and she's just telling him like, hey, like when you get tired, make sure you take a break, so you feel at least a little bit better about it. But the problem is, this is Morihito's doppelganger, and it doesn't know tired, and so it goes and goes and goes until like it gets a rip in the pants. And now the pants are kind of ruined. They can still be salvage. It's not like they're completely ruined, but it throws off the whole thing of what Morihito's trying to do. And he's like, I could repair it, but then even when I repair it, the other side of the jeans won't match and it'll just be unbalanced. And he's just so heartbroken. And, Nico feels so guilty because she wanted to do something. It's like this jean stuff meant nothing to her, didn't really resonate, but because it's so important to Morihito, it's like what's important to him becomes important to me, and I want to help him out and, get his jeans to the point that he's really happy. There's also the part two. She doesn't talk about it, but I'm sure on some subtle level, because it's come up before of, oh, if I do this, it's going to be more brownie points in the column of Morihito having like even stronger feelings for me. Anything I can do to add more to the column to make Morihito like me more. And realize his feelings about me type of situation. Miharu has some genes too, because like Nico can't use witch recovery on the items because, and we're kind of almost getting in Gachi Akuda territory where it's like, oh, you get a vital instrument because the more important an object is to you, the more care you put in it. It's almost like she can't use witch recovery because you need something of equal value, but because he's taking care of these genes and they're so valuable and precious because he's put so much hard work and sweat into making this a thing, it's kind of like, well, the price it needed to be sacrificed to repair them would be too high. And Miharu here's some that are a little messed up that my dad sent me to give to Morihito. It's like, oh, we repair these, it'll be fine, and it all worked out. But then it turns out these jeans in particular are extremely valuable. They're like 1,000,000 yen. And it's like, wait, what? It's like the reason why the witch recovery worked is because Nico wasn't even... And I think that's so interesting. I wonder, like, is the spell that... Because I think they specifically say it's because she didn't know the value of it. So now that because she went into this knowing how important these jeans were, the Morihito and the sentimental value associated, it affects the spell that way. But because she didn't know these jeans were that expensive and easily, like, she was easily able to, like, use one of her dresses as a sacrifice for repairing these particular jeans. And it was like, Morihito's like, yeah, these are so great. These are so amazing. I recognize them. And then being like, we're familiar. Everyone's like, oh my God, we could sell those. But Morihito's like, nah, I'm not going to do that. They're like, what? He's like, yeah, I'm going to wear them, of course. And it's like, this is worth 1,000,000. But for him, it's like, no, like them being what they are, like makes them that much more precious on a sentimental and a practical, like, oh, who cares about the practicality of like, we could sell this and have $1,000,000 and I could buy a whole bunch of jeans with it. Who cares? No, that's not important. These, and obviously the moment he wears them, they immediately are going to lose their value. But I was like, the things that Morihito focuses on, because he is such a pragmatic person that he could call everyone else out for their craziness of like, oh, they're doing something kind of asinine and stuff like that. But this is a very asinine and non-practical thing or pragmatic thing, because it's like the pragmatic thing would be like, hey, we have some extra, money if I just sell these jeans. But it's like, no, I'm such a vintage and like nerd that I can never part with it. I mean, I'm sure it'd be the same equivalency of like a comic nerd having a very important comic that they refuse to sell. I mean, any one of any like nerdum, like anything like you get nerdy about, like, oh, this baseball card or this particular memorabilia or whatever. It's the same principle. It's like I say, it's just a funny contrast with just the pragmatic person he is, like, for like 95% of other things, So I think that's just funny. And now moving on to the second half of the episode, where Very unexpected. Did not expect the episode to go to where it started. Well, it started with like they're watching a show where it's like, oh, like dating like a celebrity or something like that, or I guess like it's a competition to try, not competition, but maybe like almost like a dating show, but like the date, like which celebrity would you date or something like that. And then Nico turns to all the guys. It's like, oh, have you guys ever gone out on a date with a girl? And then everyone's just kind of like sighing through their teeth and grumbling. And then she says she regrets that later on because it leads to like a 20-minute debate between all of them as they're like bringing up all these ideas of like each one has their own idea of what would be the perfect date despite them not having any personal experiences themselves. And she's just like, I'm stuck here listening to it, and she's like, oh, it's cringy. And it's just like, which is so interesting considering like the lover of love that she is. You think she'd jump on, but it's just like when you're breaking it down like that, I get it. It removes some of like the whimsy and romanticism of it and just kind of turn it, because you're arguing about something that should be simple and beautiful. I get it too. So that's also probably why she looks at it from a frowning standpoint. So Morihito, who kept being challenged over his confidence of knowing like what would make the perfect date, decides, hey, I'm gonna prove it to you once and for all that my plans are right. And he tells Nico like, right, tomorrow we're going on a date, which obviously for Nico, that's amazing. I mean, it's a happy byproduct of all of this. It's like, cool, led to a cringy argument, but get to go on a date with Morihito. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. I'm wondering what the first thing he's going to do. Oh, is he going to give me flowers? And then he shows up and he's like, oh, there's something I got to give you first. She's like, yeah, oh my God, is my dreams becoming reality? She's like, no. Don't get yourself hyped up. She's like, I'm not going to get fooled again. He's most likely going to give me, what was it, like some souvenir sweets or something like that. In fact, the thing he gave her was even worse. It ended up being an itinerary for the date. And she's like, well, crap, that was unexpected. So he did get you on that front, but yeah, it kind of removes some of the fun of the date when it's like, yeah, the point is to kind of have loose enough plans. It's cool to have stuff scheduled out, but Morihito is very anal retentive about that. He even admits he stayed up till 3 a.m. preparing. He's like, is that really like, because she also wanted the date to kind of be a little bit of a surprise here and there. And it's like, oh, I literally have it laid out, all the stuff that your what you got prepared and stuff. So, and they have to rush to their first place to like get lunch or whatever. And she wants to order a very specific thing, but he's like, no, you can't do that. You have to change your order because they have to leave in a very specific time to keep on with the schedule. So, like I said, it kind of saps a little bit of the fun out of it. Granted, the food ended up being great no matter what they ended up ordering. So it worked out in the end, but still. Then they went to see a movie, which she initially heard the title of it. She's like, oh, I wonder if it's some kind of like train anime movie. And it's like, nope, it's a remake of a 1925 propaganda movie. I forgot what type of movie it was. It wasn't Japanese really. I think it was something like, I don't think it was Russian. It was something else. It's a movie from like a different country, but it's like 1925 like remaster of a like 1925 like black and white movie. And she's like, oh. But at the very least, her takeaway from it was, it's kind of a rough movie. She was like, it's not, I thought we could watch something lighter, but he already pre-ordered a ticket, so like there was no changing it at the last minute. And so he really enjoyed the movie. He thought it was a masterpiece, and he wanted to show that to Nico. And Nico's like, well, her takeaway was like, well, it's a movie I never would have seen, and I appreciate the fact is you're showcasing and sharing some of the stuff that you like with me. To her, is like, that makes it all worthwhile. Then their next stop was going to be like, well, they take multiple stops and they did stuff here and there. And one of the places they go to is a cafe, which she thought was going to be a little cafe. They sit beside each other, share like some slices of cake. And she's like, oh, it's going to be so great. But it ended up being like a proper roasting light type of cafe with like a barista with the mustache at telling you about the specials. And him and like, he ends up having this, I don't know if these puns are translated directly into English or whether there was just kind of like a translator doing like an equivalency, because because some things aren't translatable without a very extensive explanation. Because like the joke was like, oh, like it was like a Kilimanjaro and the word steeped, which is like, okay, steeped can be associated with coffee, or because drinks can be steeped and coffees can be steeped if I'm not mistaken, but also like Kilimanjaro being a mountain and steep, that whole, like, I got that one. Then it was like, oh, like I think the Blues Mountain because she was feeling down, so I got that too. But I'm like, that's why I'm like, that's one of those things where I'm like, that might have been a translator thing and not a localization thing and not a translation thing. More like if you directly translate it, it wouldn't make sense unless you're familiar with Japanese. So the pun won't translate necessarily, maybe, or maybe that is an exact translation, or with a little bit of a localization spin. I don't know. But she's lost in the puns and stuff. Obviously, the coffee she was tasting was a little bitter, but she's fine with it. Once again, like this is the type of atmosphere he enjoys, and he likes his place. In fact, he is a regular enough that him and the barista like have a little rapport and jokes and stuff like that. So the fact is that he is the type of person that would kind of close his eyes and really sip and taste the flavors. So their next stop, I forgot, they were supposed to do, I think they had dinner reservations, and then they were going to go to like a planetarium after that. At that time, I think they were already like 4 minutes behind schedule, so they had to get on a train to go somewhere. But the problem is he didn't sleep much because he was preparing this whole thing up until 3 a.m., got on the train, fell asleep. And when he fell asleep and woke up, they were already at the last stop. And you're like, oh, kind of ruined everything because they were supposed to go to the planetarium after the fact. But, and Nico's telling him, it's like, it's okay. Like, I get it. Like, because she recognizes, like, he's very confident in what he does. And he doesn't like him being confident in something and being challenged about it. And she's like, that's why we're on this whole adventure to begin with. But, that being his motivation, it still led to a fun outcome where it's just like, yeah, not everything went according to plan. And, he's like, oh, I bet all this was boring for you. I'm sorry. And she's like, no, I had a lot of fun. Like the movie and the cafe were a lot of fun. And once again, I get to see stuff that you enjoyed. You got to share it with me. And for her, like, especially when you think about earlier parts of the seasons, her biggest concern was always just like, it was always felt like a one-way street with her and Morihito, where she always tried to make an effort, but she never felt like Morihito ever met her halfway. The whole, like, never feeling like she understands what he's feeling. For him to kind of have these moments where he enjoys something and he wants to share in that with her, like, for her, that is in its own way, those are pretty big leaps, I think. And just show, I mean, we've seen little by little how much Morihito has changed and how he's become a little more open. I mean, and especially when you have years of him like burying stuff for his training, but it was also like a defense mechanism so that stuff wouldn't get to him like it used to, for a multitude of reasons, to be able to control his powers better so he'd never have to be ostracized by people again. And now, like, he's slowly opening up more and more, especially when it's in relation to Nico. The whole thing did kind of teach him to recognize how inexperienced he was and kind of learning from it. So there's that. But like I said, like the fact is he put so much time and effort into it also kind of meant a lot as well. So they couldn't make their, he had to cancel their dinner reservation, but they went to a convenience store and ate, which Nico's takeaway was, well, he's so used to cooking his own food, he never really goes outside of that. So eating like food from like, the places he already has in mind and stuff like that, or stuff that he's already kind of more accustomed to making and stuff, just kind of eating food from like a regular convenience store can be so good because it allows you to kind of go outside your comfort zone in a lot of ways. And Morihito is someone who does tend to, like I said, being who he is, like he can be a little stiff on that. So this was, like I said, a nice way to kind of get outside of his overconfidence in a lot of way and kind of experience a lot of new stuff and kind of take in the beauty of the unpredictable. But I guess it's like, to be fair, he deals with the unpredictable all the time because of his living situation, and nothing is ever predictable with Nico, other than like it's predictable that the unpredictable will always happen when Nico and the others are involved. But the date ends off beautifully. They can't make it to the planetarium, but they're able to see the stars themselves. And there's a star that goes by, and Nico's like, oh, I missed it. I wish I could have done my wish. And Morihito's like, oh, well, what did you have wished for? And she's like, well, just to be like a, good witch who's able to help everyone, And we never actually got an answer on whether or not Morihito made a wish. And for all we know, his wish could have been in that moment. Hearing her wish, is like, well, I want Nico's wish to come true. So what I wasn't, and I noticed the time. I was like, well, we got a little time, so I'm wondering what the post credits going to be. And it's them preparing for the festival. They've got like 10, because the first part of the episode is 15 days away. Now it's like 10 days away. And so they're planning out the festival. And Morihito was like, yo, we need to have like a themed cafe because that's what they're going to do as a cafe. And he's the one that suggested the themed cafe. And it's like, well, after this most recent date, Nico's like, well, there he is being assertive, which other people are like, oh, well, I can do like the costumes for it, or we could do this and we could do that. It's like, oh, that's great. But then you get the introverted people being like, well, that's great for the extroverted people, but like, what about us? Like, should we really have to like put forth a whole bunch of effort into this cafe to match the energy of the more extroverted people? And so there was a suggestion about like, oh, we should make this a cafe where it's like we can make this whole experience, mix in some stuff that will make it so that everyone is equally involved, even those who aren't like out there and very like, because the extroverted people can really be out there and really showcase them personality and who they are in helping out with this, but it's like it's not as introverted friendly, I guess. And Cuckoo's like, well, not Cuckoo, sorry. Kara's like, well, we have a witch, and Nico used your magic to do this. And it's like, we can come up with a type of cafe theme that'll allow for both sides, extroverts and introverts, to shine. It's like, well, what type is that? And then I love we just pause on Kara because she can't think of one. So they have to come up with another idea. So, but then we kind of get that one introvert. He was like the first one that kind of was like, like a little begrudging about the whole thing. We see him kind of staring back at Nico and Morihito. But then they get approached by the students who were like the lead of the festival committee of putting stuff together. They want to include Nico's help on like the second to last day of the event or whatever, like kind of the closing of the event, because they like, we want to make it spectacular, and having a witch like Morihito there, a witch like Nico there can make it something extravagant and amazing, and But then we cut to someone typing on a computer being like, on the second day, magic's going to be involved and a crime is going to happen. So obvious, the immediate suspect is the guy that was kind of giving like the looks, but it seems like he's probably going to be a red herring. Maybe it actually is him. At first I was almost looking at the fingernails. I don't think that gives away like the gender of the character. I don't think that does anything. And it's like, it almost seemed like they might have modulated the voice of the character. Maybe not, but there's multiple ways to interpret that. Like, first and foremost, like, it could easily be a thing of a crime is going to be committed, as in like whoever's orchestrating all this is working with the person who sent the different warlocks after Nico. Because it could be something where because as we know, drowning in despair and feeling bad could easily switch a witch over to like someone wants to basically make Nico go dark side or feel alone and maybe ostracize her. Because I think the probably thing is like everyone has wholeheartedly always embraced Nico with her witch stuff and her magic, but it could be meant to be a thing where it's like you turn people against her by having her magic make something go so terribly wrong or does something bad that people see the scary side of magic and maybe get a little fearful of Nico. I could definitely see that being the case. But that could be something that's orchestrated by the person that's trying to come after Nico, or it could just be a human who's just like had enough of like all that she does with her magic and kind of almost wants to like spite her. So this could just be coming from a human side of things, or this could be on the more warlock and magical side of things. I don't know if the person that's after her, like they might be a warlock themselves sitting after other warlocks, but they're definitely a magic empowered person. We just don't know obviously anything about them. So I doubt like anyone here at the school is that person. I don't see like the person orchestrating all that doing something like typing that up on a computer. So that could be communications between that person and the big bad, or I don't know. We'll have to wait to see where the next episode takes us. We've only got should be 2 episodes left. Next week's and the week after next, I believe. So I don't know if that's going to be like a 2-parter or what. Because I think in the subtitles, didn't it say like, oh, the last episode or something like that? Not unless they were saying like, oh, this is all lead up to the last episode, or they were implying like next episode is the last episode. Because I don't think those are airing back to back. I think they are a week apart because it's supposed to be 26 episodes, I believe. I looked it up just to confirm. It's like, yeah, it's supposed to be 26. So I don't know. I'm interested to see where this all goes because it makes sense. We're at the tail end of the season, so for us to circle back to like the more dramatic, serious stuff isn't too out of the realm of possibility. So I'm curious to see where this storyline ends up taking us, what this incident involving magic and crime will end up being, or what the fallout of that ends up being. We'll have to wait to see. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.